In the history of fighting, some men have stood out more than others. Some are known for their skills, some are known for their ferocity, their aura, some are known for their impact on the game. And some fighters had to go through more than others as well. Some had it tougher than others, some had a tougher road. We often say hard times create strong men, and childhood might be the most impactful time in a person's life. And recently, I see a lot of fighters talking about child abuse, and one that comes to mind recently is Ryan Garcia, saying that he was abused as a child when he was, I think, 3 or 2 years old. And there's nothing funny about that, in all seriousness, but that made me think. Some of the most feared or successful fighters in history have an history of childhood trauma. And that might be it. That might be the one factor when combined with genetics and, athleticism, that might be the one factor that makes a fighter stand out. Look at Sean Strickland, for example, who we now all know. His story is not a secret for no one. He talked about it on the Theo Vaughn podcast, opened up about it and like how he felt as a child, and also the relation between his trauma and his fighting. The whole reason he spars so much is because he says it's like therapy for him. And his whole fighting style is based off of muscle memory because he spars so much, because he's traumatized, and that's his therapy. And he also found a way to connect with the fans and the people in general through pain. And when he fights against Izzy, it's like he's not even totally there. That trauma really made him into an amazing fighter and also brought him a fan base and a platform to express himself that he maybe wouldn't have if his childhood wasn't such a big part of his personality. Same goes for Mike Tyson. Everybody knows what Big T went through, man. His life story is straight out of a movie. When you think of someone who really had it rough, you think of Mike. Bad neighborhood, bad family, speech problem, and above all else, that story about how the other kids from his neighborhood came and took his pigeon, man. That shit breaks my heart every time. And it's funny to me that a pigeon is what led Mike to have his first fight, And the butterfly effect turned him into one of the most feared men alive. To this day, Mike still reps them pigeons, And when he talks about his childhood, you can see a passion. Not a good one, but a passion still. In the way he talks about how the person he had to become to get through it. He has that ferocity that some other fighters just don't have, or not as much. Pretty much everyone has some type of trauma, in a sense, but some fighters in particular had a trigger event that made them become great, and Mike Tyson is the best example of that in my opinion. Perfect combination of genetic and environment. Because if he had a nice childhood, let's say that, grew up rich, nice neighborhood, good family, good school, everything went good in his life, I don't think he'd have made it half as far. He would not have made it half as far, even with the same athleticism and physical abilities. That childhood trauma switched something in his brain. It just switches something, man. When Mike Tyson looks at his opponent, you can see the same shit with Sean Strickland. It's like he's not totally there. He has that extra aura around him, when you look at Mike, he's been through shit. Another one that's a bit less known, I just learned about it recently, is Jon Jones. Man, Jon Jones had it rough. But, it was to be expected, right? No one with that many behavior problems is completely sane in the head. He really had it rough, though. From his sister dying, his mom dying, being the smallest in his family and being bullied around. And I even saw recently that he was a victim of sexual abuse. All perfect conditions to break or make a man. And when you see the way Jones talk about fighting, it's almost like a spiritual experience for him. He doesn't see it as a sport almost. He's talking about almost being possessed by God and doing this and that before every fight. The famous Featherman story before the Rampage Jackson fight, I think it was. It really is like a spiritual experience for him, more than for some. And as with Mike Tyson, without that background and that story, I don't know if he would be the same as he is. Many great athletes enter the fight game every day. And when looking into the GOATs for my GOAT video, that's when I noticed the pattern. All these greats really had that one thing in common. GSP was a big victim of bullying, to a level where it wasn't even fun in games anymore. It was everyday harassment, Mighty Mouse with his family growing up. I think his stepdad was beating him up or some. Francis Ngannou with the sand mines and in Cameroon. Alex Pereira with the child labor and alcoholism, no role figure, everything. The moral of the story, is that if you want to have the best fighter possible, you have to put them through as much trauma as possible as early as possible. Thank me later. Like and subscribe.